All right, welcome to Cwic Show today. Today is April 13th, 2026. My name is Greg Mattson, and I am your host. In this episode, we are covering the Utah Valley University commencement speaker, invited here speaking in just a couple of weeks, Sharon McMahon, who hours after the assassination of Charlie Kirk on the campus of Utah Valley University was disparaging him and calling him out for being hateful. Odd choice. You have to wonder what in the world is going on here. Does Sharon have some ties to people at UVU? She's spoken there before, but wow, this is very odd. And this is going to be the elephant in the room during the commencement speech, the 300-pound gorilla, so to speak, the 1,000-pound gorilla during this commencement speech. It's very, very odd. I'm going to cover why, even additional reasons why this is such an odd choice. All right, this episode is brought to you by Go and Do Travel and the Wavemakers Podcaster Cruise, which is coming up November 14th to 21st. This is a fantastic event. Had a great time at it last year in November. We're going to have several different podcasters there, such as Jackson and Hayden Paul from the Stick of Joseph, Cardinellis from Ward Radio, Jonah Barnes, Andrea Woodmansey, Aranza Condi, Hannah Stoddard. We've got Jacob Hansen of Thoughtful Faith. It's going to be a great group, a lot of fun. You're going to be with this group and with those members of the online community for an entire week sailing up the California coast. It's going to be a blast, edifying. You're going to have learn so many different things from these presentations and have a fantastic experience. Go to cwicmedia.com, cwicmedia.com. Up at the top, go to Trips and Events and scroll down to Wavemakers. Be sure when you register on this that you put in the code CWIC5 because that will give you a discount on the cruise. All right, CWIC5 for a discount. Here we go. All right, so let's get into this. Again, a very odd choice for UVU to choose this commencement speaker. Let's go to their website and take a look at what they've got here. You've got Sharon McMahon is a New York Times bestselling author, award-winning educator, and America's government teacher. That is a very odd title, if that's self-placed by her. America's government teacher. I'm not sure how that's much of a positive, but let's go over a couple of things here. She's brought up here as being someone who's completely nonpartisan. That's the big focus of what they talk about here. But if you go to her social media, she obviously has political views that she puts out there. This isn't just about, peace. This isn't just about being nonpartisan. She puts out her political views. And they are not aligned with certainly Charlie Kirk, obviously. And it's always odd to me when I see this kind of thing. It's the same type of thing I saw with Jonathan Rauch, the journalist, and BYU's, wrapping their arms around him and everybody being goo goo gaga over his support of the church with the way that we're handling LGBTQ issues. He is a gay atheist. And of course he likes what we're doing because we're moving toward his side. We're moving toward what he wants. But it's the same type of thing. He talks about how, two sides can work together and it's all, hunky-dory and kumbaya. But if you go to his social media or his articles, he is not that way at all. And it's the same thing here with Sharon McMahon. So she's going to be speaking as the commencement speaker for this year's graduation at UVU. This is April 29th, 2026, so about a couple weeks away here where they will have this. There's been a lot of controversy and talk over this because of what she did. And her posts about Charlie Kirk just hours after he was assassinated. And now this is the oddest thing. The oddest thing, right? The biggest thing known for, you had all the trauma. There was all the talk about how the students needed to sit through trauma sessions and maybe some of them did. What they had seen, what had gone on. It's the biggest event to ever happen, quite frankly, unfortunately, at UVU. And that was just back in September of last year. So we are, what, about 8 months later? And the school decides that for their commencement speech for this school year, in which Charlie Kirk was assassinated on campus, that they're going to have a speaker who ridiculed and disparaged Charlie Kirk shortly after he was assassinated and killed. That is the conscious decision here of the president of the school, who I see is resigning after this month. She resigns May 1st of 2026. Someone who generally I think I like who she is and what she does. But what a strange choice here. And you've got the chapter of TPUSA, of course, at UVU up in arms, the conservative group of students there up in arms over all of this. Doesn't matter. And the first thing that always comes to my mind with these things, especially in an education setting, an educational setting and a higher education setting, is what if the tables were flipped on this? What if the tables were flipped on this? What if you had a left-wing pundit that had come to speak at UVU, and that person was assassinated outside while they were on campus talking? And there was a right-wing pundit that within hours of that assassination is disparaging that left-wing pundit and how they are horrible and that they spread hate. And then that person gets asked to speak at the end of the year at the commencement for UVU. You and I both know that would never, ever happen. But in a left-leaning environment, and I'm not saying UVU as a whole is left-leaning. I am just saying that in education educational spaces, in that world where your peers are all over the country and beyond, and they subscribe to a certain religion, a certain political posture, then of course something like this is going to be easier to get across. It's going to be easier to push through. And that's apparently what has happened here, because we're a decision, or there is the possibility that there was absolutely no vetting done on this. Right? That there was no vetting done on this whatsoever. This president, Astrid, I want to get her name right here, but Astrid Tuminez, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, who has been the president for a few years now, several years, and who's retiring on May 1st or leaving the school at May 1st. She was presiding over the assassination. And there's even the thought that, well, wow, why didn't they have enough security here? Why was the security so scant? And how did this happen? And you can't totally blame somebody for that. Obviously, you don't expect these things. They don't happen every day. But still, she's presiding over that event and understands the trauma and the national press and the international press that has honed in on your campus. And you are the president. And for the school year, you choose someone who derides Charlie Kirk. What a bizarre scenario, a bizarre scenario. Now, regardless of this, you have the expected press channels here, media, that have come in and supported the decision. And even though it is absolutely bizarre, they barely touch on the fact that this is so bizarre. They don't touch at all. They don't go over the quotes and the posts specifically in the articles that she made, because they would be afraid to do that. Instead, they're going to support the institution. Of course, they're going to support the institution. Let's take a look here on this article written by Emma Pitts, which shows up elsewhere. This is really going to be telling. She says mixed reactions followed Utah Valley University's announcement last month that America's government teacher, again, wonderful title, Sharon McMahon would be the 2026 commencement speaker. McMahon was criticized by conservatives for her reaction to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And some on campus feel she wasn't the right choice. Some on campus. So how would this be written if it was, again, the tables were turned? Many were, it would be many, at least that word would be used. Since news of McMahon's participation in the commencement for what will be the university's largest graduating class in its history was posted, UVU spokesperson Sharon Turner told the Deseret News the responses to her speaking for commencement have been overwhelmingly positive, of course. By whom? The faculty? By her peers? And that McMahon spoke on campus previously and was well received. Was that before Charlie Kirk's assassination? Should have looked that up. Wonder if that was done before her assassination. The spokesperson, another Sharon here, Sharon Turner, says also she focuses on nonpartisan approach to history. Don't read her social media. And civics, which is consistent with our standards as a university. So that's their reasoning. What was their reasoning with Charlie Kirk? There's nothing here addressed. And the article, the journalist here, does not address this specifically or put an answer in, at least, from Sharon Turner of UVU about Charlie Kirk's assassination. You know, a good question might be something like, Sharon, this was the biggest event that ever happened at UVU. It just happened back in September. Why did you choose to pick someone who disparaged Charlie Kirk within hours of his assassination and called him hateful and took quotes and put them out of context and lied about them, saying they were in context? That would be a good journalistic question, right? But no, there's a certain side that is being supported here by the Deseret News. The institutional side is being supported here because they have friends in high places. That's exactly what it is. Okay, let's go a little bit further here. As a New York Times bestselling author, an award-winning educator and podcaster, McMahon was a notable flat platform that focuses on political issues, both current and historical. She often makes guest appearances on news platforms and podcasts. So she's a political figure. Okay, she's a political figure that you're going to bring out. Would you bring on someone who leaned right as a political figure, knowing she's a political figure for commencement? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't. They laud her here. This is from the president, Astrid Tuminez, in a press release, saying that Sharon McMahon is an original. She is a force of nature and a force for good. As a former history teacher, she understands that education can inform, inspire, and instigate courageous action. She underlines how each of us can contribute to a vibrant democracy and how strength comes from knowledge, kindness, and collective action. Okay, again, where is the question to the president about why you chose her after she disparaged Charlie Kirk after his assassination? No words of this whatsoever. Again, the website of Sharon McMahon states that she is a source for nonpartisan insight that makes sense of the news, unpacks misinformation, and gives it, and connects the dots from history to today. My goal is simple, she says, the truth. Explain it clearly and help you understand how your system works so together we can make it work better, okay? Obviously not in every case. All right, now what's interesting here, one thing that's interesting here that tells you a little bit more about the slant on this is that this article in whole is grabbed, posted on KSL.com. So anyone, those of you in Utah, you know very well about KSL.com and where they lie on these issues, which is a bizarre thing, I think, for the church to own this station, not just because of its political views, but because it is so political and so aligned to one side of the aisle. But this gives almost zero cred to It pulls credibility away from the Deseret News' article, I would suggest. Having this is like the Salt Lake Tribune grabbing the Deseret News article and putting it up in whole, asking for permission to put it up as a whole article for the Salt Lake Tribune. It's the same thing. Exactly the same thing. Very odd thing. Now, let's go back here to looking at the president here. The president was involved with the U.S. Institute of Peace, something that the government under the Doge, under Doge, they were trying to get rid of this because of wasteful funds that was not needed, right? They've won this in a court battle to keep it open, and then Trump changes the name and puts his name on it, right? The Institute for Peace, something like the Donald Trump Institute for Peace or something like that, whatever. Typically you wait for presidents to die before you put their name on anything. But anyway, the purpose for much of the UVU's president's the UVU president's career was to prevent and reduce conflict. That's what she specialized in, and had jobs at very, very high levels with the government of the Philippines, in D.C., on several large boards, and her job was conflict resolution. So where does that make sense here? Conflict resolution and prevention. So how does this fit into her, process that she puts things through? I mean, certainly she's got some type of a process to lower conflict, to get to resolution. I don't think this would fit into that. I don't think this would fit into her process. So a very odd thing to put together here and kind of as a parting gift to the university that she gives here. It's very strange. Like I said, I like her. I do. I just think that this is such an odd thing. Maybe she just says, I don't care. I'm leaving. It doesn't matter. I doubt it, but yeah, explain it to me. Explain it to me. What is the reasoning behind this? It's very strange. Now, on KUTV, on their website, that's another Utah television station, news station. There's some more that is here. Here you've got Mike Lee, who I do not always agree with, but oftentimes do. He says here, why would you do this, UVU? That's the question, and nobody asks this. That's the problem with the Deseret News article. Nobody asks this. It's the obvious question. And of course, it's not in here because the Deseret News isn't going to do this. They're not going to make UVU look bad. Right? So why would you do this? Here is Caleb Chilcutt. He is the chapter president of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk's organization at UVU. And he released this statement. Hours immediately after Charlie's assassination, Sharon McMahon posted a now deleted series of out-of-text quotes from Charlie in an effort to tarnish his name. This is true. This is true. In order to tarnish his name and minimize the tragedy, rather than offering condolences or condemning political violence. Later on, much later on, she goes in, much later on, she goes in and does condemn political violence. But in the moment, for her, the issue was Charlie Kirk is hateful, and I'm going to take things out of context, say that they are in context, and I'm going to drag his name through the mud, even though he was just assassinated a few hours ago. That's what happened. Caleb continues here. While universities should welcome diverse viewpoints, great point, great thing to say, platforming someone who treated a historic and tragic political assassination, I would insert here, that happened at our university back in September. Not treating it as a moment to grieve, but as an opportunity to create content and make a political statement, right? The nonpartisan making a political statement. To create content is tone deaf and disrespectful to those still affected. Absolutely. Again, bizarre. He continues, and the fact that the university is choosing McMahon is entirely disappointing to all of us still reeling from his loss. I couldn't be more disappointed in this university for such a hurtful and callous decision. And that's exactly what it is. It is unbelievably callous. Who in the world thought about this first? That's what I'd like to know. Who thought to themselves, let's get Sharon. She said really bad things about Charlie Kirk. So let's go get her. That's perfect for this year's commencement. The end of this year for UVU, for all the tragedy, for everything that's happened here, the court case still going on with his murderer. Let's have somebody who really disparaged him instead of even offering condolences. This makes a lot of sense. Now, those tweets, those posts have been deleted since then, but others had captured them. This part here is interesting by KUTV. It says, 2 News also reached out to the Utah Valley University for an interview to discuss the process of choosing a speaker. Okay, there's the right question. Why McMahon was selected and its response to concerned students. Well, they didn't address this at all about Charlie Kirk. Right? Oddly here, it says the university directed 2 News to its initial announcement. So they would not answer the question. This is really something. I mean, this is really, really something that they have done this. It is mud in your face, pie in your face, taking a pie and throwing it in your own face. It's unreal to me. It is absolutely unreal, but at a higher education institution, it doesn't surprise me at all. So they sent her over to the announcement that was made and all the lauding of Sharon McMahon, and that's why they chose her, right? That's the reasoning. All right, now for those of you who are on video here, you're watching this, I've got here a still of the quotes here from Sharon McMahon, her Instagram account here. I believe this is Instagram. This could be Twitter. Says it's called Sharon Says So. I think it's on both. I think this is also her Instagram account. And this is from September 12th, right? 2025. And this is about Charlie Kirk after he had been killed. It says here, these aren't sound bites taken out of context. This is what she's saying precisely. It is a blatant lie. A blatant lie. Right? These aren't sound bites taken out of context. Millions of people feel they were harmed, and the murder that was horrific and should never have happened does not magically erase what was said or done. What are you saying here, Sharon? What are you saying here? In the middle of all of this happening, this tragedy, you're bringing up a political point about how Charlie is hateful. It doesn't magically erase this. You are not, based on this, someone who reduces conflict. You are not, you might be nonpartisan, but you're certainly non-political. You are not apolitical. Let's be clear on this. Here are a few of the things that she's grabbing from Charlie Kirk on his quotes and taking them out of context. She says these are just a handful of examples, and to many, when they see people treating Charlie Kirk like a martyr, it seems like they are also endorsing these ideas. That is absolutely disgusting. What ideas, Sharon? What ideas? This is what you're going with. If you empathize or you're concerned about him being martyred, you must be a bad person. You're a hateful person like Charlie is. That's what you're saying. Here's another one. The controversy isn't about being politically incorrect, having a difference of opinion, or or preaching the gospel. It's about repeating bigoted ideas on a stage that reached tens of millions. No, it's not. I am not a huge Charlie Kirk fan in terms of having been exposed to a lot of his material, but I do not believe for a second that he was a bigoted person. Not at all. And then she says lastly here, it's important to remember that the incredible tragedy of a public assassination does not erase the harm many experienced from his words and the excusing and the ensuing actions his followers took. Okay. All right, so these were just a few things that she said. I want to get into the post-millennial here, and they cover a little bit more on what was done with all of this. This is my friend Tommy Stevenson on his account on X, and this is on post-millennial. It says the full context of Charlie Kirk's black pilot quote used by Sharon McMahon and others to claim he was a bigot. So this is how it works here, right? This is what Charlie said. And she had said that she put everything into context. She certainly did not. If I see a black pilot, this is quoting Charlie Kirk, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to bring this up a little larger here. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified, Kirk said in his podcast. So that's what she's using. Now, of course, she's not going to follow up with the entire context of this. He's not talking about that's the way he wants to be. In fact, he hates being that way. He hates having to think that. He doesn't think that because he's black. He's thinking that because of DEI practices. That's what he's railing against, is DEI. Not because he has black pilots. And not because he would think that way because he has black pilots. All right, I'm going to go on a little bit more here on Tommy's quote, all right, I'm going to go a little bit more here on Tommy's X post here. Tommy says, McMahon claimed the quote in context. And it casts suspicion on all black professionals, not just individuals, and sounds like he automatically views black Americans as less intelligent or less educated. So she changed this purposefully. This is a man that was just killed a day or two before this. Just murdered in front of all of the world. And she's doing this. She's putting this into saying it's in context when it's way out of context. And it was not in context at all, right? Seconds later, Kirk said, that's not who I am. That's not what I believe. They were talking about the impact of DEI, right? That's what they were talking about. They weren't talking about, oh, we've got black pilots. Who cares? But of course, Sharon here, after this assassination, is going to rail against him, position this as a blatant lie, trying to say she's in context with all of this. After he was just murdered. And I'm sorry, but having this woman on isn't much different for the university to be in this same position. It's strange. It's very, very strange. Back to the article with the post-millennial. It says that Charlie Kirk then went on to say that only when airline companies such as United, remember the United deal that was going on there for a while, which they gave up on because it was wrong, such as United are trying to reach quotas for diversity, that would be the conclusion some would come to. It's about DEI. It's not about having black pilots. The CEO said he's forcing that a white qualified guy is not going to get the job. So I see this guy. He might be a nice person. I say, boy, I hope he's not a Harvard-style affirmative action student. So, that's what he's saying. It has nothing to do with what his color is. It has to do with the DEI programs that are in place. And I want to finish again with TPUSA's Caleb Chilcutt, president of TPUSA, the chapter there at UVU. Again, hours immediately after Charlie's assassination, Sharon McMahon posted a now deleted series of out-of-context quotes from Charlie in an effort to tarnish his name and minimize the tragedy rather than offering condolences or condemning political violence. Okay, that is who they are asking to do, asking them to speak for the commencement. This is incredible. Seriously, this is just, it is beyond the pale for the university to do this. It is a slap in the face. It's not a backhanded slap in the face. It is a full slap in the face to the family of Charlie Kirk, to those that liked him, and to humanity. To humanity. It's a joke. Absolute joke. I hope that they change this type of thing in the future. They consider this decision. Maybe there's still a couple weeks. Maybe they consider a change. I doubt it. But wrong. This is really, really wrong. Thanks for listening.